Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. We are breaking down the aftermath of UFC Vegas 75. The middleweight division has somewhat of an answer. Jared Cannonier, that's your answer right there. Took it to Marvin Vettori, dominated him in a historic performance. Most significant strikes landed in any middleweight competition by far. And we're talking about a 39-year-old killer gorilla, Jared Cannonier. Israel Adesanya has one thing clear, and that there's really not going to be too much fresh blood in this division. You're going to have to tackle these same mountains over and over again, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to talk about all of that and more. Bringing in my co-host, the Santa Fe bomber himself, the New Mexico native, brother. It was a fun night of fights. UFC Vegas 75. Would you say it delivered?
I think so, Derek. I definitely think so. There's a lot of finishes, a lot of not necessarily controversy, but some fights we didn't see go the same way a lot of people did, or at least that we thought were going to go a certain way. So it's nice to see people show up, really put in a lot of effort, man, and give us a great night of fights, brother. How'd you like it?
Yeah, no, I'd say the same thing. This is a really good lead up to UFC Jacksonville happening next week. And we got some questions answered for sure, right? We got a couple of hot prospects blasting that were on the scene. Manuel Torres with the Hellbow, very Matt Brown-esque, just put a hole through Nikolas Motta's face. Folks, we told you that fight was going to deliver, but we'll talk about that more in a second. Before we jump into all of this stuff, I want to give a friendly reminder to those who are supportive of this show. If you haven't subscribed and you watch from time to time, you should definitely subscribe. You should tell a friend. And yeah, let's get these numbers up. AJ, talk to the people. How can they tap in with the Bloody Water Podcast?
Folks, the best place, Bloody Water Podcast on YouTube. Make sure you go hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends. Even if you're on Instagram, Twitter, wherever it is, man, also hit us up there too, because we're very active on that. Same thing, Bloody Water Podcast across all boards. And if you need to, if you're old school, bloodywaterpodcast.com, just the sake, the home, the hub, you know, your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. Many links all down below, but go hit that subscribe button. It's the one that helps us out the most, as well as leave a comment, man. Let us know what you think. It really does help us out, help us grow, and help us get to those that are also looking for this kind of content.
And AJ had mentioned this in previous shows, but folks, if you want to make your way onto the program and maybe not in a speaking aspect, but you want a comment to be shown, that's the best place to do it. Drop a comment down and then we'll respond to you. So we'll chat back with you, but you might make it on the show. So that is that. All right, folks, take a look at the scoreboard. 56, 43, and 2 for me, 61, 38, and 2 for my man AJ. I won the week, but I'm still behind on the leaderboard. That's the interesting way that this game rolls. So AJ, let's talk about it, brother. Prop recap. Let's see what we got on the board here. All right, my man. So we got Marvin Vettori, our headliner for the Bloody Water Podcast consensus picks. AJ, we missed pretty bad on this because this was 50-45, 50-43s, stuff like that. It was not looking too good. However, I would say the rest of the board was looking relatively decent, at least on my end. Tsarukyan, Armen Petrosyan, Sabatini, Torres. They had a little ups and downs, AJ, but you took a couple of risks. I want your quick assessment right here. Christian Leeroy Duncan. That one was a big gamble that had a big payoff potentially. Didn't pull off, but in hindsight, I ask you this every now and then. In hindsight, do you still roll with this pick after you saw what we saw here, UFC Vegas 75?
This is one of the few picks, Derek, where I do wish I had a mulligan on this one. I was going in expecting basically the unexpected because we don't exactly know what CLD really brings to the table. And this was a hell of a fight, man, against Petrosyan, a dangerous killer out there, looking long, lanky. Dude, definitely wish I would have bet a little bit more towards the safer side. But folks, that's why I preface it. This one was a gamble. This one was a real risk taken. The unknowns, sometimes those give us the best payout. So yeah, I would like a mulligan on that one, Derek.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll come with real conviction on my picks, right? And I'll say, folks, this is one of these opportunities where this is steal for the money right here. And if you rocked with me on this pick, even I told you so many times, like you made your money, so you're welcome, right? But this is one of those points right here where it's just like sometimes the hype behind a prospect does not fit the bill based on the competitor that they're facing. So with that being said, it was just one of those moments that I think really humbled us a little bit, right? Even myself, because I was scared. I was like, this dude Duncan is no joke. Back turn to him. We'll talk about all that in a second, bro. All right, man. Let's look at the props right here. 3-3 for me. Not a fantastic day. We took a lot of big shots. Did not quite hit on a lot of them. The one that surprised me the most, AJ, because pretty much had it right here in the bag, is Sabatini submission. You picked a TKO on that one, and he was an inch away from a TKO multiple times until he had to club and sub his way to victory. Were you at all surprised, or did you figure that fits the bill?
It fits the bill, Derick, but I was a little surprised at how close the fight was. Honestly, this is one of those ones where I don't want to mulligan. I thought Lucas Almeida was doing great, and like you said, inches away, centimeters away from getting the finish, and then you get clubbed and sub, man. So can't really blame. Can't really be too mad at that one, brother.
That's right.
And great pick, by the way. If you're picking submission on that for the prop pick, all credit to you, Derick. And folks, if you went with that bet, all credit to you as well, because it paid out.
It paid out. That's right. We got to risk it to get the biscuit. Doesn't always work, but today we were victorious. And with that being said, let's not mince any more words. Let's talk about some fights, baby. Let's get it.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown,
Courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
AJ, it's rare when you're talking about Jared Cannonier, a man who went from heavyweight to light heavyweight down to middleweight, a man who is 39 years of age, to talk about him taking out the young prospect, the grizzled veteran Marvin Vettori, however, who was only 29 years old, you would think would be the future of the middleweight division. He dominated him in a historic way. So it's a tough pill to swallow to know that you lost to Cannonier and now you're a step behind in terms of like the title picture, but it's another story to say I got absolutely dominated. And when I invited Jared Cannonier, I dare you to come wrestle me, I got wrestled up for majority of the round. So with that being said, man, how impressed are you with Jared Cannonier, and how big of a setback is this for Marvin Vettori?
Massive for both of those, Derick. Massively impressed with Jared Cannonier. Dude showed up like the killer gorilla, man. Showed up how we've seen him perform in the past and took it to Marvin in his best options, too. Looked good on the feet, stopping the takedowns, like you said, invited into the wrestling, didn't even have a beat of sweat on him, brother. Killer gorilla was looking far and above leaps and bounds where we've seen him in the past. And kind of also to that point, it seems like Marvin not necessarily underperformed, but didn't stick to his truest game plan. He was sitting there trying to trade shots. We were talking about it when the mics were cold. He felt the power, got excited, got the blood boiling. Yes, bro, I hurt this dude. I can finish him now. You fall in love with the hands and you get pieced up by somebody who is more technical, faster, better at the striking. And you decide to strike with him. It was an interesting call from the Marvin Vettori camp. Do you think he wants that one back, Derick? Do you think he wants this fight back to be on a whole different way?
I would assume so. Like, you would think that this is not the Marvin Vettori that you're accustomed to seeing. Honestly, this is not the Marvin Vettori that got him to where he is in the rankings currently. So that's what we see sometimes, though, right? Is that a fighter will have a tried and true game plan, especially coming from a grappling background, string together a couple of big shots. They, lean on that power. It's not like Vettori's knocking a bunch of dudes out. But you're right. You clipped Cannonier in the first minutes of the fight, and then you fall in love with the striking. You did beat Roman Dolidze in your last fight, split decision, but you did beat him primarily with just a striking of effort. I think he needed to wrestle, but that's the thing. It's easier said than done trying to wrestle on Jared Cannonier, who will sprawl hard, hips heavy, and then rain down elbows on you, because a lot of the damage Cannonier did was in that half guard, got you on the ground, and just kind of raining down those blows on it. So I guess this is the question, man. Once again, Jared Cannonier decided to take the wrestling approach to Marvin Vettori. He says, honestly, is it worth it to break my hands on this dude's head who just won't go away? I'm landed 257 total strikes on this dude. 241 of them are significant. Let me just wrestle him up, mix it up, and prove myself to be arguably the biggest challenge to Israel Adesanya. I mean, that's the part that I want to talk about right here. What does this really mean? Because you got Dricus du Plessis, and then you kind of got Jared Cannonier and Robert Whittaker. Those are like the only guys right now who are relevant in that conversation. What does this mean, though?
Derick, I think it just causes more confusion and more stalls, to be honest with you. Having Jared Cannonier win this fight does amazing for him. Mm-hmm. But for the picture, for the belt, for all that stuff, it kind of throws a little bit of a wrench in the policy. I think everybody was hoping that Dricus du Plessis was going to be the one getting the scrap. I don't think Dricus wants that fight. He's not calling for it. I think he has something else lined up. I'm not exactly sure at the moment. And same thing, man, Robert Whittaker. Do we want to see, a fourth fight? Third fight? I forget how many it is. And that's kind of to the point. Do we want to see another one of that series? Same with Cannonier. Do we want to see the second? I think Izzy is just so far and above. We're going to need a star-studded performance. Because, yes, was this a historic output by Jared Cannonier. Yes. But would it have been more impressive? He would have actually been able to put away the absolute brick of a head that Marvin Vettori has. That boy's taking shots, bro, left and right. That would have been more impressive, clamoring for more of a title opportunity. I don't really think there's much on this, Derek. Do you?
Well, let me just clear up the picture, right? Duplessis and Whitaker are already booked to fight. So once the winner of that one is decided, then it's really Jared Cannonier. And I'm assuming Robert Whitaker wins that fight, right? So it's like Whitaker, Cannonier, do they need to fight again? I'm pretty sure they already fought too, right? So it's like, you're right. It's just a big cluster in the middleweight division right now, and it's tough to really put your thumb on where is going to, like, what's the best direction to move forward from here. All we can say is Jared Cannonier, at 39 years old, being one of your prized possessions of a middleweight division as a promoter, you might not be the happiest about that. Because look at when Glover was champ, right? It's like, oh, we got this beast champion, but he's also over 40 years old. So it's like, you can't market for the long term. Either way, man, I think Marvin Vettori will definitely still be a staple in this division for years to come. It's just a matter of figuring out when it matters the most. Jared Cannonier, incredibly impressive victory. AJ, you got anything else on this one, or are you ready to move on?
Nah, man, I was looking up. I'm excited. The one person I'm excited to see return is Chris Weidman. I don't remember which weight class he's jumping back into after the leg, but he's even calling for it. So there might be a little mix-up we see with that, but I don't know, that's just hoping and wishing, Derek.
Come on, bro. What are we talking about here? No, shout out to the OG former champion Chris Weidman, but I mean, once again, we want the old guys over here. That's our threats to the – I don't know, man. All right. With that being said, that was a fun main event. Now let's talk about this co-main right here where there was a lot on the line for one of these members right here. Armen Tsarukyan takes a big risk against Joaquim Silva. That's how we say it right here. The veteran, Joaquim Silva. And listen, he survived a scare. He got rocked, right? But you have to respect that he got rocked because he put it out there. He didn't say, I'm going to take a conservative performance. That's kind of what you were predicting, right, AJ? Conservative, I'm just going to do what I need to do to win. I had already mentioned, that doesn't get you anything. You have to finish this dude. That's non-negotiable. And after he got rocked, AJ, we saw pissed off Armen Tsarukyan, which goes to show that when he wants to put it on you, for a lot of these guys, there's just nothing you can do, man. This dude, Joaquim Silva, had a perfectly executed whizzer on Armen Tsarukyan, who just out-techniqued his way to being able to nullify the whizzer, get him on his back, and just dominate. And that ground and pound at the end, round 3, you know he's like, I got to get this dude out of here. So Armen Tsarukyan, man, you know he's not going to be the number 1 contender after this win. I don't know why he would particularly think that. He's number 8 in the rankings. What did this win do for him?
I think all it did for Armen Tsarukyan is show that he does have some holes that can be exploited by people that aren't in the top 15. It proved that the deeper or this division is a lot deeper than we thought, man. I mean, coming in, we all expected, what was it, minus 1,000? Mm-hmm. That was what we were expecting for Armen Tsarukyan. Comes in and Joaquim Silva puts in and stands tall and actually holds his water. Very impressive for him. Now, at least going forward, does this clamber him to the top 5? Not necessarily. I don't think so, Derek. Yeah, you got the finish. Don't get me wrong. But it was a lot harder of a fight than a lot of people were expecting. I don't really think this gives you too much of a bump. Maybe fights a little bit more well-known opponent in the next one, so that way it could be the building blocks to get a little bit more name recognition. But you're right. The things we saw out of Tsarukyan were very impressive, man. Control, power, distance, timing. Then you get rocked, you get mad, and then you put the pedal to the metal and really start to implement your game plan. This dude has all the things. It's just he's not fighting the people that are going to be elevating his own career. Do you agree with that? Or do you think this dude actually got the shot on this one, and with the finish, he deserves what he's clamoring for?
No, I agree with you, but I don't think it's his fault. He's calling for the names. Dudes just don't want to fight him. He already said Grant Dawson turned down a fight against him. Dan Hooker turned down a fight against him. So he's like, okay, well, give me somebody in the top 5. That's what he's clamoring for. So I don't fault him, but I do agree with you. Now, I will say this. I think people are going to think way too much about that one moment in the fight that largely is overwhelming him just dominating Joaquim Silva. It's Joaquim Silva. There was not one point aside from him getting rocked, him rocking Tsarukyan with that hook, that you're like, oh, this dude's about to take it. There was not a single point. So that's the part of being so dominant. That's the part of taking a fight where everyone expects you to win, is you have to do something flashy. And he pulled it off. It wasn't the most impressive, flashy victory, but he pulled it off. Minus 125 for the TKO prop, so he cashed that one in. I thought it was going to go to a decision, though, man. I was all like, dude, this is going to be bad luck for him. Either way, he's calling out right now Michael Chandler. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that one. The reason why, folks, context, is that Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, tough. They're supposed to go and fight after. McGregor needs to be in the USADA testing pool. His deadline was like yesterday or something like that. Allegations at the NBA finals, all this craziness. It looks like that fight's falling through. So if Armen Tsarukyan can get a Michael Chandler, a name like that, right, that automatically has to propel you into title picture. Because if Conor McGregor, if he would have fought Chandler and would have won, you'd imagine they say, all right, McGregor, title shot immediate, right?
100% immediate, man. McGregor wins that fight. I think McGregor fights at all. He has a good chance of being the next one up regardless. But if Tsarukyan can get the Chandler fight and perform how he did in this one, that'll be a star-studded fight, bro. That will be something, because Michael Chandler is also one who's willing to take the risks. Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to take the risks like Tsarukyan did in this fight, man, that's going to be fireworks, and that'll be a serious statement made if Tsarukyan can get the finish on that fight as well, Derek.
That's right. Big win by Armen Tsarukyan. We're just climbing the ladder in this lightweight division to that inevitable rematch against Islam Makhachev, barring he still is the champion when they meet up again. I don't know who's going to take it from him. Maybe Chucky Olives, you know what I mean? We'll see what Oliveira can do. But, all right, man. So this was right here, this matchup. This was the biggest unknown. This is the dude right here who pops off of the screen, Christian Leeroy Duncan, CLD. And he pulled some very Michael Venom Page-esque moves in this fight. The only problem is, if you pull those moves off, you got to win, right? If you're going to do the flashiness, if you're going to be unconventional, you got to win. And he did not win. He arguably lost all 3 rounds, right? However, he did have a bloodied, gashed up Armen Petrosyan. So it was one of those weird spots where you look like you took no damage, but you absolutely lost the fight. What is the stock looking like for Christian Duncan? Because some people are saying crazy things, right? Like, this dude, fraud alert, he's not on the level he's supposed to be. I just think that this was a terrible matchup based on where he's at in his career. Like, if you're trying to build a prospect, you don't feed them to Armen Petrosyan, you know what I mean? But what are your thoughts?
Well, that's the exact thing, Derek. This dude coming in 2 fights into the UFC, you want to build a prospect and you throw him against Petrosyan, basically a war-torn veteran who's been in there, grizzled at least. This dude, with the strikes that CLD was throwing, Petrosyan saw them miles away, literally miles away. He was seeing the trap set up and laughing. Anytime CLD would turn and give he's going to fake spin, basically looking over his shoulder, Petrosyan would just step back. Literally just go ahead, bro. We're way out of range. There's no way you can hit me here. I don't know what you're trying. Basically looked like it was a coaching session, if you will. Some guy comes in, has a lot of athleticism, ability, maybe knocked out a couple people before, and then you go in against somebody who really knows what they're doing, and they're seeing stuff just gliding by, not even a glance. And like you said, yeah, did he bloody him up? Yeah, optics-wise, some might have thought CLD won this fight. But to be honest with you, Derek, I agree with you. Not a single round. I didn't have a single round score to Christian Leeroy Duncan, unfortunately, because that was one I picked. So it's a little let down right there.
Yeah, no, but you could see the raw talent, though. That's the thing. Is that he's not. Yeah. The thing is, there's no jab there. There's no, I'm gonna just measure a range and I'm gonna be in the pocket and I'm gonna throw a crazy far teep kick. I'm gonna blast away a right hand. I'm gonna throw Superman punches. Everything's flashy. Everything takes a lot of explosion. So come rounds 2 and round 3, while he's still dangerous, some of that pop wore off, and now I could see it coming a little bit better. And then, once again, circling back, Armen Petrosyan is just not the guy you want to give a prospect to like this to build them up. I think that Christian Duncan's biggest downfall was that in that last fight that he took against Dusko, man, Dusko got the knee injury, and they just count that as, that's a TKO for Christian Duncan, 8-0, undefeated. I think this dude's going to be really, really good. I did not like when he did that spinning, turn my back and chase you with my back to you. Because imagine you're fighting anybody with who's a little more willing to risk it and has legit grappling chops. You can get choked out immediately offering up your back like that. Petrosyan, even though he did opt to grapple a little bit, I think he was just I'm just going to play it safe. I'm not even going to try to fall for your little tricks. I'm just going to step back, wait till you turn, and boom. So big win by Armen Petrosyan. I will say, when you look at the numbers right here, this was actually the most interesting part. Significant strikes was only an 89 to a 59 difference in favor of Petrosyan. So it's not like Petrosyan was just completely outworking him, but he did do the little things where craft together combos instead of single shots, which is, what wins you fights. Prediction, and then we'll move on. Christian Duncan. Do we see him as a top 15 fighter in this division in the next, I don't know, 2 years or so? This is middleweight after all.
This is middleweight after all. Derek, if you were going to say a year, I was going to say no. 2 years, I think so. I think he can get the fundamentals of technique because you're right. If this dude comes in looking technical, looking strong, throw in what people would consider ordinary strikes, and then you set up the flash, that's where all the stars are made, man. You think of who's the tall dude with the fro he just fought 2 weeks ago? Brazilian guy. Crazy power, did the worm.
Oh, Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker. Thank you, Derek. You think of Johnny Walker, his explosiveness has only benefited from him becoming more technical. Yeah. So if we can see Christian Leeroy Duncan doing that, boy's going to have a hell of a career. Like I said, give it 2 years, we'll see him in the top 15.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, too, man, because one wrong move from Petrosyan, Christian Duncan would have had a highlight reel KO. So it's not like you could fault this dude completely. Like, one zig instead of a zag, your head is going flying into the bleachers the way this dude is throwing. But, all right, fair play, good fight. And let's move on to a very, very interesting matchup going into the fight. Right on paper, this was a fantastically interesting matchup. Pat Sabatini, though, he said it. He said, hey, you're a black belt, I'm a black belt, but there's levels to this, and I'm going to show you the levels. He absolutely did. Did not waste any time. He used some strikes to set up double unders, and from there, it was just takedown city. It was a fantastic, I would say, display of just like top control jiu-jitsu. And then finally, once the ground and pound didn't work any longer and your opponent is demoralized, they offer their neck. So you take it. Arm triangle, get him out of there. What did you think about the fight, man? Pat Sabatini, I think he really fought with conviction, like he had something to prove, and he wanted to show that, yeah, this guy's a scary finisher, but if I put him on his back, there's nothing he can do. What do you think?
But this is the fight, Derek, where I wasn't mad that Almeida lost. Yeah, I picked for him. This is a good fight. Like I said, I still would have chose Almeida because things were close in there. But Pat Sabatini is the definition of what this fight card was for me. You show up, not too many people really backing you. Kind of haven't had the best of, performances in your past, but you show up looking like a Pat Sabatini of old on a mission. Like you said, Derek, dude had conviction in there. He needed this win, needed the finish bad. Sure enough, worked hella hard to get it. Bloodied up too, doesn't matter. This guy really came in and put on a classic Pat Sabatini show. And you were saying it from before, Derek, the boys from Philly, they really go after it. And Pat Sabatini proved that. This dude's a dog in there. Great fight, a lot of fun, very fun to watch, and short too. I mean, what else can you want, folks? This dude put it to work, got the most money for his miles, if you will. And it was a fun fight. How'd you like it, Derek?
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit on what you're saying, because what you're saying is correct, right? Everything about Pat Sabatini, aside from, I think that the only people who lost faith in Pat Sabatini are the people who aren't familiar with his career. This dude was on a rampage, bro. He is 18-4. It's not like, oh, I'm dropping a couple, I'm inconsistent. He was on like a 6-fight win streak or something crazy like that, smashing everybody. And then you run into Damon Jackson, you just get caught. So what do? You come back, and then like, the thing about the fight is that it was not particularly close ever, right? I don't think so. I can't say that because Lucas Almeida landed a total of 3 strikes in the fight. Pat Sabatini put a wet blanket on him and beat that ass. Like, there's no other way you can put it. It was a dominant performance. It was a excellent display of top control jiu-jitsu and wrestling, as I had mentioned before. And I thought this was a statement fight. You took the guy who finishes everybody and you remind them, I will still finish them. I will get them out of here. I will break them. Pat Sabatini, I do think, is on a different level, and he is one of my dark horses to be a title challenger, contender in the featherweight division. Now, with that hindsight, with that revision, are we seeing it the same way? Because I just want to make sure that, like, Lucas Almeida, he's a fantastic fighter, but in this fight, he did not show that.
No, I'm with you, Derek. Yeah, he did not show that. Came into it with all the hope, but Pat Sabatini, like I said, put on a performance that was just too much for Lucas Almeida to handle one way or the other. And when you call it out, Derek, we're both black belt. He's black belt. I'm black belt. Let's get to it. Pat Sabatini had the best of the showing right there.
That's right. Fantastic performance by the Philadelphia native. Paul Felder was excited too. He's like, I get to interview my boy Pat Sabatini right here. But yeah, man, 6 minutes and 27 seconds of control time, 2 of 3 takedowns, and that's all he needed to get the win. Big win by Pat Sabatini. But arguably the biggest win on the night, Manuel Torres. I told folks, I said, hey, man, you perform well. Everyone's going to know your name. Manuel Torres came in with the John Cena, you can't see me, 1 second removed from just landing a picture-perfect elbow to the forehead of Nikolas Motta. that dropped him. That's my question right here, AJ. That elbow was so perfect. He landed it on the forehead and still stiffed my man. How violent of an elbow does it have to be for you to be able to take one on like the hardest part of your head and still get dropped?
The forehead's not even a button, Derick. Most people eat a forehead shot all day long. And I think it was just the way he stepped in and then threw it. He had to have so much momentum going forward, powering from the legs, the core, and then turning and cranking in a perfectly timed shot. Motta ate all of the force, bro. He was the perfect punching through the opponent, man. Yeah, you got to hit hard. You got to hit hard, bro. That was and credit to Motta because that was a fun fight. It only lasted 150 or a minute 50 seconds, but Motta put in, bro. He stood there. He was ready to swing and bang, and sure enough, this was quite a performance. I forgot, Derick, who won Fight of the Night?
I actually haven't seen the performance bonuses yet, so I'm letting you guys down right here. Yeah, I haven't seen them yet. I'll take a look at them maybe as we're talking here in a second.
I'm hoping both of these boys get paid is the biggest thing because, yeah, that was a hell of a performance. I don't know if this was Fight of the Night because it was so short, but still, hell of a noteworthy performance nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I was really interested about is that there was 20 total strikes landed in this fight between both fighters, and that's how violent it was. Now, Manuel Torres, he did not get a Fight of the Night bonus, but he did get a $50K performance bonus. And, I mean, bro, on the slate for Knockout of the Year, that's kind of what we're talking about here. How hyped are you about this prospect right here? They're building him up. They're giving him tough opposition, and he's clearing these guys out right now. I imagine the next time that he fights, they're going to match up somebody with a little more experience who's going to try to drag him into the deeper waters, later rounds 2, round 3s, because Torres, of his 14 wins, I think a vast majority of them are first-round finishes. So what do you think?
No, I definitely think they're going to give this guy a lot more grizzled of a wrestler as well. Somebody who is exactly what you're saying, Derick, going to take you into those deep rounds, really make you work, test your mettle, see what you got to offer, and maybe you come out on top. Maybe you come out with a star-studded performance again. But I do think they're going to give him a little bit harder of a test coming up next. I don't really have a name for you. I was kind of looking real quick. But, I mean, there's the ceiling that Torres has is only dictated by how good he's going to be against the opposition of, like, the wrestlers and the grapplers. Because if somebody's willing to stand and bang with this dude, we've seen what he can do. I don't think the UFC is going to offer that too much more unless they're trying to get, like, a fight bonus or just really get this guy's name in the lights, if you will. I think they're going to give him a pretty hard test or at least a pretty hard path going to the championship, which makes him even better going forward. I'm excited for this dude. Derick, are you as well?
Yeah, of course. I think they're going to start trying to maybe stack him on some of these Mexico heavy cards because they're just saying he's the next, prospect out of Mexico. They're saying, man, Mexico right now is kind of taking on what Brazil used to be for the UFC, where a lot of killers are coming out. A lot of champions are going to start coming out of there. So we'll see what happens. I also, I don't want to forget, there was one little blemish in this fight where Motta cracked Torres, and you're like, ooh, all right, this could have went the other way. It's not like this was completely one-sided. I think that when you really put it, at the end of the day, Torres is going to have to maybe take a little bit of that aggressiveness and like cool off on that as he reaches the higher pinnacles, because you get caught by some of these guys and there's not going to be a mulligan. There's not going to be a recovery period. So big win by Manuel Torres. 150 TKO, plus 150 TKO prop. We both cashed on this one, so that was beautiful to see right there. And Nikolas Motta will be back. You know that. All right, man, to kick us off right here, AJ, I have no other words about Nicolas Dalby's performance other than blue collar. This was worksman-like. This was a Bloody Water podcast consensus pick gone wrong that I'm not even mad about, because Nicolas Dalby says if there's one clear path to victory against Muslim Salikhov, it's all that spinning heel kicks and quick twitch move. No. We got to stop all that. I might not be as fast, but I can put pressure and my cardio will be relentless. How impressive of a win was this?
Derick, I was so impressed with this fight. I had to go back this morning and rewatch it again because I was like, am I sure that happened last night? Did Nicolas Dalby really put on one of the best performances we've seen him do, closing the day? Like you said, you want to stop the guy from all that fast switch muscles, the spinning kicks, the heel kicks, all the stuff that's going to be flying at you at range. Close that distance, clinch him up, and put some elbows to him. And sure enough, bro, Dalby, and like you said, Derick, the consistency at which his output was impressive, bro. So impressive. Nicolas Dalby fought one of the best fights I've seen him fight in a long time. There was a time where Nicolas Dalby was climbing the ladder, getting a lot of name recognition, kind of stuttered, kind of fell off a little bit, but with this one, came and showed that he can put a game plan to work and stick to it regardless. I think he won both 2 and 3 very consistently and by a pretty big margin. Round 1 up for debate. It looked a little closer, but still, this boy got the work to put the work to Muslim Salikhov and showed what Nicolas Dalby can do in his career going forward. Were you as impressed, Derek? I know you said you were also impressed, but how impressive was it to see Nicolas Dalby kind of perform that way?
It was one of those showcase performances where a couple of the prior wins that he's had, you might have been able to call into question and say, that was a little controversial, scorecards. This one, there was none of that. This was clear cut to the point. I came for victory and I was the better man. He was not the faster man, but he was the bigger, stronger man. And you could see it in the cage. Like, he used his physicality as a weapon. He weaponized his cardio. This, to me, sounds a little more like a matured fighter who's taken his career very seriously and is not trying to continuously fall into those, pitfalls that we all kind of, develop over time. So big win by Nicolas Dalby. What do they call him? The Danish Dynamite or something like that, man. Like, my man is ready to go. Big win over Muslim Salikhov. And this is interesting because Salikhov was in that top 15 contention just right there at the tail end. Does this now say, all right, well, now let's start working some top 8 to 15 type fighters for Nicolas Dalby? I'm really intrigued with what big names he might be able to get out of there that we'd be surprised to see. So plus 225, cashed it, big win, underdog pick. Nothing more else you could say, but that was just very impressive. All right, man. With that being said, that was your main card recap. And since we're doing pretty good on time, brother, let's break down a little bit of controversy, some of the stuff that was going down on the prelims, right? I think that we need to talk about a couple of these matchups here, AJ. So let me pull out the sheet right here, and I want to start off with this one. Right, there we go. Ronnie Lawrence versus Dan Argueta. So this was a tough situation here. And let's give a little bit of context, right? Dan Argueta, man, this was his shot. He lost on The Ultimate Fighter. I think they might have given him an opportunity in the UFC, and he might have dropped the ball on that one. I could confirm right now. But the point is, this was the real opportunity. You get Ronnie Lawrence. Let's see what you can do. I thought Ronnie the Heat Lawrence was going to be too much for him. He has a really good flow style of grappling. Dan Argueta is straight power grappling, right? Power wrestling. So what does he do? He goes, works his bread and butter, hooks a guillotine, has Lawrence. Lawrence can't escape, he tries. And then when the hand is right there, AJ, I'll tell you, there's times where you're in a choke and you're like, I'm going to tap. No, I'm good. I'm going to tap, right? And when your hand is here and a referee checks to see, are you asleep or are you awake? And they grab your hand and the ricochet causes that. Is that a tap or is that interference from the referee? What do you think?
Interference with the referee, Derek. I'm all about the interference for this fight. And yeah, it was an unfortunate circumstance to actually unfold, but I don't think check-in for somebody asleep when their arm is up is the best call. If their arm starts to drop, then you give it a little pickup. And as much as this is controversial when it happened to the Robbie Lawler and Ben Askren. Yep. Ben Askren had him in the bulldog choke, and Robbie is giving the thumbs up, but it looks like his hand drops. That's when you check to see if it's asleep. If it's going limp, somebody's hand's up looking for the tap. I don't think that's a hand going limp. So I do think this is a poor judgment call by the referee to step in at that time. You see the shoulder dip, you see the body dip, then you go in and check for a slump, a sleep. But until then, man, let them play, let them get this out, because you cost both people their bonus, man, or at least their win pay.
And easier said than done for the referee, Keith Peterson, right? Very easier said than done, because that's a heat of the moment. You got to just make a judgment call. I feel gutted for Dan Argueta. This is your redemption moment. This is your everything fell into fruition. I got left from the promotion, won a regional title in the LFA. I came back. I'm here. And now the fight didn't happen. On paper, this fight never happened. It's a no contest, premature stoppage by the referee. So you're gutted for him. He's calling for a rematch. I would like to see a rematch to see how that one goes. But with that being said, man, I just feel like as a referee, even though Keith Peterson, right, Dan Argueta already said, he was like, you can't even shit on him. Like, it's a tough job. But there has to be something. You can't just get away with that and be like, oh, yeah, it's all good, right? Like, you could tell he felt bad about it. But, like, are we going to be like, all right, let's train you a little bit more, have you take some classes so that you can identify those situations to not jump in? Is it that serious? Do we need reprimanding, I guess? Do we need that?
Derek, this is a data point on the Keith Peterson trail, not necessarily a data trend. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you need to be riding the Keith Peterson train that hard. I think this is just one of those moments, like you said, Derek, split seconds are happening in the cage. And do you want someone to suffer irreparable damage going forward? No. So you err on the side of the caution. I got to respect that. You know, you got to appreciate that as somebody going for safety concerns, which is the ref. What is the ref there to do besides, make sure there's no illegal shots? He's there for your safety. So you can't be too mad at him. If this was, Mario Yamasaki, where we've seen his data trends really take off. There's multiple points going forward about all the bad shit he's done. This isn't Keith Peterson's MO. I'm not too mad about him. I don't really think a training or a recommendation of any sort is in order. Do you?
Well, at the end of the day, there's only one thing that really bothered me about this, and a lot of people on Twitter were kind of complaining as well, is that Keith Peterson was really trying to convince the people that Lawrence tapped. Like, he was trying to convince them. Like, oh, no, I saw him tap. And it's like, well, you do a video replay, and then you don't see them tap all of a sudden. So why are you trying so hard to convince people? Is it an ego thing? Was it originally, and I'll respect if it's originally an ego thing, and then you're like, you know what? I messed up. You know what I mean? All right, I get it. But like that initial shock of I can't be wrong, it's too big of a moment. That's the part that worried a lot of people. Do you dig into that? Or once again, are we just sticking on the line of, nah, that's just a data point?
Oh, man, I do dig into it a little bit, Derek, because it shows your character in the instant. It's good for him to pull back and be like, oh, yeah, you're right, all that stuff. But how much of that is going on that we're not catching on to? That's the more concerning part right here. Yeah. How much of those things where it's like, no, you tapped. I know we see it all the time in like baseball and basketball and football where the refs kind of just can do what they want and there's no real say against it. In fighting, it's a little bit different of a story because there's a lot more on the line. So I definitely think there might be a little intriguing play, at least going right there.
Yep. No, fair. We'll move past this one, but it's something to keep your eyes on that one, folks. Mm-hmm. All right, now moving back here, Carlos Hernandez versus Dennis Bondar. This was one of your sleepers right here, bro, and it ended up being a fun fight. There was a point where you could have thought a point was going to be taken away from Bondar for an illegal knee. They let him rock. Carlos Hernandez pulls off one of the most incredible, 2 seconds left, nice little toss, elbows raining down, get him out of there. And then there's talks of, nope, that was a clash of heads. Let's review it. And he's like, don't take this away from me. Don't take this win away from me. They gave him the win. They did not credit him with the finish, which he should have had. What did you make of this weird little scenario right here? Because Carlos Hernandez, that should have been performance bonus. That should have been ESPN top 10, all of that. But now it's marred by on a wrestling throw where you go a cross-body throw, heads clash on the bottom. Dominic Cruz said it himself. That's a throw. That is not a headbutt. What do you think?
I agree with Dom. I agree with you, Derek. That was not a headbutt nor an intentional matter at all. Like that's one of the tricky parts about having to judge whether this was a foul or not, was the intent behind it. The intent behind it was to throw this dude to the ground. Sure, every now and then, if you've ever been in there, your head's going to hit the ground. You need to prevent yourself from actually having that happen. So it's up to the fighters at that point. And we were talking about this when the mics were cold. It was not the headbutt or the clash of heads that really did the damage. It was the 7 unanswered elbows to your face that really did the damage that put you out. So I think you're right, Derek. They robbed this dude of that $50K bonus. They robbed him of some amazing top 10 performance, on ESPN, like you're saying. And if you got to feel bad, man, you got to feel bad because even with the illegal knee that happened before, nobody was really that pissed off or nobody was asking for a point. I was talking about with my lady because they're watching, a foul is a foul regardless of the outcome. So I do think at that point, we're saying oranges are oranges, apples are apples. Like a clash of heads, you're going to call it on that one because you think it did so much more damage, but so does an illegal knee to your head, but you don't get to take a point away at all. So there's some inconsistencies that go in there. And yeah, was the clash of heads a little more damaging than the knee that just kind of scraped off the side? Yes. But again, it wasn't what put you out. It wasn't what had you staring at the sky, hands basically seizing up, you know?
Yeah.
Those are the elbows. That's what finished the fight. It's rough that you even heard him, like you said, Derek, you're saying, don't take this away from me. Don't take this away from me. Because that's what it is. You were robbing this man of a performance that he had. It's rough to see. But, I mean, one of the most vicious finishes that wasn't a finish we've ever seen.
And a hilarious soundbite. He said, he gets on the mic after and he says, "Clash ahead these nuts, man. I knocked him out." I was like, let's go. Carlos Hernandez, let's go, bro. All right, man. And then the last bout that I wanted to touch on before we went into a rankings review, I was hyping this one up. This was my sleeper, Alessandro Costa versus Jimmy Flick. I don't think that one disappointed. Here's what I want to talk about. Obviously, highlight performance by Costa. Finishes Jimmy Flick. It's a beautiful thing to see, all of that good stuff. Jimmy Flick comes out of retirement. He talks all crazy about UFC and they're not getting the insurance that they need and all that stuff. And I think he retired kind of as a martyr to a degree, but putting himself out there saying, I want to retire on a bigger cause and I'm going to bring, awareness to this. Then you come back. And I'm never a fan of retire and then come back. And it's like, you got to make a choice. You come back and you get brutally assaulted by a young contender, Alessandro Costa, who was hyped up, who took his UFC debut on short notice against Amir Albazi, who was itching to show people that he can crack. And what does he do? He just tore up that leg of Jimmy Flick, said all of those flying triangles and craziness that you do, yeah, that's off the table now. Essentially, this dude was working with one wheel and got put away. So, you can't fault him, but at the end of the day, how often are we going to keep seeing this, man? Retire, come back, retire, come back. Do you think that he should have just stayed retired? Do you think he should continue to take a couple more fights? What do you think?
I think he should have retired, Derek. And if you want to do it as a bigger cause, go start a foundation. Go help in some other way, because there's a reason you retired, whether it's your mind, your family, whatever happened for a reason. You should listen to that, because if not, you're in some serious trouble. Like we said before, nobody plays fighting. This is one of the most dangerous games you can hop in there with. And it got proven again, especially from some young dude who's hungry, who's coming, who has not even had the thought about retirement. And you're over there kind of been playing wishy-washy. That's not the place you want to be when the gates close.
That's tough, man, because, the young fighters, they're probably thinking, you're 1 foot out the door, let me take you out to pasture, old man. You know what I mean? Like, no joke. And that's the reality, because it's like, I'm fighting for my dream and you're an obstacle in my way. I have to remove you. I'll do it by any means necessary. These guys will do, whatever. So big win by Alessandro Costa. I'm hoping nothing but success in the future for Jimmy Flick, but I think he ended on a bang, and he should have. You never finish your opponent and then retire and then come back and get finished. And it's just a long cycle. Bigfoot Silva, for an example. Dude just took his retirement fight, lost the fight. He needs to retire, right? But now he's saying, I'm coming out of retirement again because I need to get this. And it's just like, but that's neither here nor there. All right, folks, that's your prelim pour over right there. A couple other good fights that we didn't talk about. Big win by Teresa Bleda. That was a fantastic grappling approach. Modestas Bukauskas gets the win over Zach the Ripper Pauga. Controversy. We don't really need to talk about it too much, though. Let's jump into a rankings review, brother. Today, I want to talk about, there's really only one division we can talk about, and it's a stagnant one that we need to get some clarity for. So when I say 60 seconds rankings review, sometimes we go over. Today, we might be true to form right here, because I want to talk about middleweight. Israel Adesanya, clear champion. Alex Paeta, remove him, take him up to Jamal Hill's division in 205. Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier. Well, Marvin Vettori, he lost this title eliminator, if you want to call it that, so bring him back. You got Dricus du Plessis, Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, and then I guess Paulo Costa, maybe Sean Strick. We talked about the stagnant nature of this division. Roman Dolidze loses to Vettori. Kelvin Gastelum gets an interesting win against Chris Curtis. We're both in the same boat, right? Like, if you're just looking along the lines, you're like, what is up with this division? There's no clear answers for Israel Adesanya, and I would imagine that he's probably feeling it too. So what do you think?
I guarantee he's feeling it, Derek. You just go down that list. It's all people you have whooped on or had really good fights with and still came out as the victor.
Bro, look at this.
Sean Strickland is the one that I don't think he has fought, but still, I don't think he's ready for that fight either. And yeah, we have the Alex Pajeda, but he moved on. So literally that just makes a hit list of people that you've been seeing. Now we go a little deeper. The Roman Dolidze's, the Nasruddin Imavovs, the Andre Muniz's. How much time do you think those guys are going to need to be able to climb that mountain to actually sniff gold, if you will? Because I think it's going to be a while, man. I mean, we saw the only reason Dricus du Plessis' name is even in the conversation is because he was saying some stuff about Africa, and that pissed off Israel Adesanya, and that's where he kind of gave du Plessis the shine a little bit. Unintentionally, he gave him a little bit of the rub and said, "You want to talk shit? I'll show you what's up." So that's the only reason. Nobody's clamoring for the Dricus du Plessis fight strictly off of talent and skill. We just want to see it because Israel Adesanya wants to beat this dude's ass. That's literally the only reason, unless you see another one. And going back to what I was saying, with all these young dudes coming up, there's so many other people ahead of them that it's going to be a while till we see actually new blood get involved in the rotation. What do you think?
Nah, I don't agree, man. They're going to push somebody up there just because they have no choice. That's what I'm saying. Look at Israel Adesanya's hit list. No, seriously, look. He's fought Pereira, Whitaker, Vettori, Cannonier, Costa, Brunson, Gastelum, right? You fought all those dudes. You fought Hermanson, literally. Right? Has he fought Hermanson? I'm not sure if he's fought Hermanson. But the point is you fought like 65-70% of the top 15 and won. And some of those guys you've already beaten multiple times. So that's why it has to be Dolidze. It has to be Strickland. It has to be Imavov or Brendan Allen or, Chris Curtis, Andre. It has to be one of those guys. Otherwise, you're running rematch after rematch after rematch. Otherwise, you're fighting one time a year. And if Israel Adesanya is still true to his claims of I want to be an active champion, I want to fight every couple months, I mean, they got to give him someone, right? I guess in hindsight now, that's the Irene Aldana getting her shot against Amanda Nunes, I guess, right? Even though I still feel a way about that, but that's neither here nor there. Either way, AJ, the point is, middleweight division is not looking too hot, and that is how we're going to be concluding this UFC Vegas 75 program here today, at least for the post show. Next week, UFC Jacksonville, Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria, man. That's going to be a good fight. There's going to be a lot of good fights on that. Folks, once again, this is your friendly reminder. If you are a fan of mixed martial arts and you like to throw a little bit of money on it to make it interesting, there's one program that's tried and true that you need to come down to go ahead and get your picks to make that money. Bloody Water Podcast, your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. And, of course, if you like a little bit of in-depth behind the scenes of our current head-to-head leader, the man who is in the clear lead for one of these belts right behind me, right? Well, twitch.tv/Santa Fe Bomber. AJ, take us away.
Like Derek said, folks, twitch.tv/Santa Fe Bomber. Go check me out. We're doing a lot of different stuff there, but the most important thing, we're building a community that's talking about fighting, talking about all the stuff we're actually interested in, man. I do a lot of the breakdowns on there where I'm just watching things. You can get inside my mind, but the coolest part about it, you can actually engage also, man. So write some comments, jump in the chat. We can have a discourse back and forth about that. And that also ties into the show because I'm going to be talking about it on here anyway, folks. Go join me over there. It's a lot of fun. And the best part about it, like I said, you actually get to have a little input in there, have a discourse. There's nothing better than talking things out about the stuff you like. Go hit us up, twitch.tv/Santa Fe Bomber. It's a lot of fun. Also, if you like the live tweets, you like the tweet action, man, go hit my boy Derek up over there. He's very active on that front. So there's multiple ways you can get access to the stuff that's going to make you some money. Best one, though, make sure you hit that subscribe button and share with your friends. Don't be a stingy friend. Nobody likes somebody who's winning money and not telling you how to do it, not telling you how they're doing it. So when you know where they're doing it, it's right here, folks. Bloody Water Podcast, your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. Go check this out. Support.
That's right. And then I will just leave this, and this is the deep cut for the real fans of the program who stick around to the very end of the show. We got a couple things coming up right now. I'm not going to give any surprises, but we're going back to our roots, and we're getting back connecting with some of the local talent, some of the talent that's going to be the sleepers of today and the stars of tomorrow. So stay tuned, folks. That is it for us. Catch us on Friday next week for the UFC Jacksonville preview show. There we go. All right, folks. Until next time. Peace.